Tyler, we're going to talk about AI today.
Really?
Yeah. The
Kind of scares me.
digital twin. Do you use AI at all?
No.
You don't use ChatGPT?
No, I don't even know what it is.
Oof. I don't know
I'm
if
like,
I actually might be jealous of you. I have it open on my computer all day, and I sent someone a screen grab of my computer because they were like, "Hey, they wanted to meet. They were like, "What's your schedule like?" And I took a picture, like a screenshot of my screen, and because it was a mess, my schedule. I was like, I don't have any time. But they were like, "Whoa, I like the ChatGPT open up in the corner." I'm like, dude, I use that all day. I use it for information, to get information, to rewrite a sentence when I need to come off in a better tone than when I'm pissed off. I'm like, rewrite what I'm thinking in a nicer tone. But we're not talking about chat GPT today. We're talking
so
about AI.
why are you jealous that I don't use it or know what it is?
Well, because I think that it's one of those things. It's like a can of worms. It's
Oh,
like, it's just you start messing with it at a level of just like pushing the boundary of like what you can do with it.
yeah.
I think it's
No,
interesting.
I, I don't know. I'm, a lot of times I tell people that I'm technologically inept. It's just not like my brain doesn't necessarily work that way. And while I find it fascinating, it's not anything like some people are just really into it. And technology and gadgets and all of that. It never has been me. I feel like I'm more analog than digital,
Hmm.
but I do find it very interesting and very fascinating. And what our guest discusses today, um, at first, and I knew what this was going into it, but then like I kind of didn't believe it. But then listening to it come from his mouth, I was still somewhat my jaw left wide open.
So give it a listen. We're going to be talking to Ryan Fink, one of the founders of Digs. If you want to check out them or check out more information about them, digs.com. You can see them at the International Builder Show this year, February 27th through the 29th, booth number W4574. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. At Andersen, the commitment to excellence goes beyond words. It's in the very core of their design and manufacturing philosophy. They devote themselves to creating products that embody strength, reliability, and unwavering performance. And you may be wondering how exactly they do this? Well, through testing and then more rigorous testing.
The dedication came to life during our memorable trip to Bayport last year. There were a lot of memorable moments from our trip to Bayport. Obviously, blasting a 2x4 through some test windows, all of their testing facility, how much effort goes into these products, right? And how they are not just testing to a standard, but they're going beyond that, to truly understand, right? Like, when is this going to fail? And then let's work backwards from there. So it was a really cool experience. I've taken a lot of trips to other factories and other vendors' facilities, but I really truly did enjoy this trip to Andersen out in Bayport to see how they operate and what they do.
Yeah, we witnessed firsthand the meticulous testing practices that set Andersen apart. And it's not just about passing industry standards. As Tyler said, it's surpassing them. Their windows and doors aren't just designed to perform, they're engineered to excel at the highest standards.
At Andersen, the commitment to testing isn't just a process, it's a promise of quality and performance excellence. Learn more for yourself at andersenwindows.com.
This podcast is also brought to you by Buildertrend. And it's the beginning of another year, and Buildertrend, the leading construction business management platform, has something you need to ensure a successful 2024.
Get your hands on the ultimate construction strategy template created to help you combat curveballs and create a clear vision for your business.
This strategic planning template allows you to outline the goals and actions required to achieve long term success in your business. It includes
How to use the template in 7 steps,
a detailed example of a filled out template,
and an editable Excel sheet you can start using immediately. I'm not going to lie. I thought that was edible initially,
So did I, and
but it's
I
not an Excel sheet that you can eat, it's one that you can edit. So
so if you want
if you wanna see that, visit buildertrend.com/strategic planning to download it for free today and start editing it, not eating it. This is probably news to you.
holy crap.
It's not big news, but we have an announcement about IBS from NAHB.
Okay.
So IBS is February 27th through the 29th in Las Vegas. It's hosted by NAHB, and they are giving away 50 free expo passes through a unique link to the Modern Craftsman.
Dang.
Yeah, so all homes start here. The biggest builder show in 15 years is happening
Oh,
February 27th through 29th in Las Vegas. Register today at buildershow.com
Hold on.
slash modern
Time out.
craftsman. Again,
Time
first
out.
come, first serve, 50
Time out.
free expo passes. If you miss out on that, I don't have anything to tell you.
Ti
So the link to that will be in the show notes, but it's buildershow.com slash modern craftsman. Sweet.
Ryan, you're headed there, right? Are you gonna be there all
oh yeah.
week?
Yeah, we'll be there all week, Monday through Friday. So
Nice.
we've got a booth and hosting a cocktail party. We're also going to, I hear, a pretty cool one.
Yeah, you'll be there
Yeah,
Monday. I think
yeah,
you're helping support our opening event.
sure am.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
second year in a row, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there last year, but I had a great
Oh,
excuse. We had a child at that time. Um, but yeah, I'll be there this year.
perfect. I don't think we've met in person, so that'll be great.
We have not, but we've talked
Yeah,
on Zoom quite a bit.
yeah,
Ryan, for those that don't know you, you are in the construction tech space. And I think that the construction tech is evolving enormously fast. I think, we for years this podcast has been going we're coming up on our 7th year, and I don't think we've talked about construction tech as much in the first 6 years as we have in this 7th year here. And I think there's a lot of things contributing to that. A lot of times, a lot of what we talked about was that this industry is so far behind, and there's all these articles about how even farming is leaps and bounds ahead of us in terms of innovation. And construction just seems to have been stagnant for so long. But when I say construction tech, I know what it means to me. But what does construction tech mean to you?
yeah. Great question. The way that I think we look at it at Diggs is how can we apply technology in a way that enhances and improves the builder experience. People have been building homes for thousands of years. The craftsmanship these days are absolutely astonishing. But how do you apply new age technology to those processes that work really well? Again, just to enhance them. So that's what it means for us. We have a background in artificial intelligence,
Hmm.
been building AI before it was cool. So for about 15 years, and we saw that there was an awesome opportunity and great market timing to bring AI into the built world for the first time.
Now, when you prior to Diggs, you have an impressive resume of being involved with many things. But when you talk about artificial intelligence, is that where you kind of focused a lot of your attention in terms of technology?
Yeah, it has because I kind of fell back into it. I had you know I had a problem. I was a runner when I first got into technology, and when I would run the same route, I would slow down and speed up, and I wanted to see, an old ghost of myself, like where I would speed up and slow down. And
Hmm.
so I kind of fell into, well, how do you do that? How do you actually visualize where you're at? Because that, for me, was the biggest motivation, was to actually run with somebody. And if you don't have somebody, how do you race against, your old time trial?
Mm.
So did a lot of research, and was always into technology growing up. And what I came across was some technology called computer vision and machine learning, which was necessary to be able to take an avatar of a person and a heads up display and implement that on a path and anchor it to the ground. And so just through, a bunch of research, kind of became self-taught, and applied it to solving that problem. But then my second company solving it to another problem, and now at Diggs, using that very same technology and experience that's evolved quite rapidly over the past couple of years to a new problem set.
And so prior companies were they involved in construction or home ownership by any means?
So the first one wasn't. We had a couple what I like to call micro pivots. They weren't full on pivots, and we ended up evolving our CVML technology into a gesture interface. And where we found a really good fit was for enterprise companies. Think GE, Porsche. You're gloved up working on machinery. You're still interacting with digital devices, but it's really difficult on touchscreens. So use gestures instead. We found some pretty good traction, but not until that company got acquired did I really have an idea for a second application of the technology, which was Stream, my second company. And that was my first kind of foray into connecting homeowners to contractors through a remote video call.
And what stream?
Yeah, so Stream is a, or was, or is, I guess it's still around, a remote collaboration software for handheld devices, so smartphones, tablets. Connects homeowners to remote contractors and experts through a seemingly very simple video call. But in the background, it uses AI to actually extract context from the world. So as you're on this video call, the remote contractor sees this 3D digital twin being built in real time from all the pixel information. They can take measurements on that digital twin. They can use OCR to capture serial number and model number and just basic job specs so they don't have to roll a truck to capture those same details. They can just roll a truck with the right equipment, right person, right parts the first time.
So hold on, you're getting super technical, and I know
Same.
I'm not
That
I'm not the only one that's not following along. But so I'm on this video call,
Yeah,
and say I'm on the remote contractor side. I'm a I'm a HVAC tech.
yep,
Call comes in some form or fashion. I field it. I pick up the call, and a client saying I have no heat.
yeah,
So you're saying that while I'm on the phone call, there's data being extracted from the video.
exactly.
So they're showing me the serial number of their air handler, and essentially that's automatically giving me what product data, product knowledge, information about it.
Exactly. And we're taking basically the video feed and we're able to take live measurements in real time from just that video feed.
Better
That's
hide everything you don't want them to see.
That's one of the problems with video. Yeah, you definitely have to.
so what made you so you say it's still around. Why are you not involved? Like why are you not involved anymore?
Yeah, so Stream got acquired in 2019 by Front Door,
Hmm,
who's parent company of American Home Shield and several home warranty brands. So they acquired our company, incorporated our technology into their new mobile application.
got it.
Yeah,
So front door is using it when you're sign that's a bigger business basically, and they're using your technology specifically. So Stream,
yeah.
it's really the technology that you developed.
Exactly, and our technology was also embedded in the Lowe's app, Best
Mm,
Buy app, Traeger. So we had some really big brands using our technology for a lot of support calls, but also started using the technology for giving better estimates. Because you
mm,
can think Lowe's something like flooring. One of the pain points is getting accurate measurements to know how much flooring you need.
mhm.
And homeowners sometimes have a challenge getting accurate measurements, as you may know. And so they could just use our technology to scan the space and then automatically get a immediate accurate estimate from Lowe's.
So,
That's
Nick, sorry, I
yeah.
want, and that like this isn't necessarily unique to you, but can we like, how did you get into the world of startups? Obviously, was that intentional?
I kind of. So I was actually studying pre law. I was going to become an attorney. But as I was doing that, I just wasn't inspired. And I've always grown up wanting to be an inventor. I mean, I live in the era of Shark Tank where, I grew up watching that show. I grew up watching my dad be a tinker and always trying to solve problems by creating things. And so I think once I realized I didn't want to be an attorney, um, I, I decided to jump in and start building my first company just out of the desire of solving some of my own pain points. And literally going through that process, I got into an accelerator called the Portland Seed Fund. They literally walk you through, and you have classes on how to be an entrepreneur. And they had this one pager that had like 10 or 15 things that said, don't do these things as an entrepreneur. And I just remember looking at that and being like, oh my gosh, I have literally made every single mistake on this list. So I kind of jumped in School of Hard Knocks and learned all the really tough lessons. And along the way, collected some really phenomenal people, both investors and teammates.
All right. So for people who are not familiar with that world, like what from a pretty, I guess, elementary or rudimentary perspective, you're coming up with an idea or you're finding somebody who has an idea and then you're taking that idea, conceptualizing it, creating a plan, and then bringing it to investors for funding.
Yeah, exactly. And typically doing some user research before. So just making sure that the thing we want to build has a real pain point that we're going to solve. So talking to real potential users and getting their feedback, sometimes even creating a prototype first, like a clickable one of what the experience could be, testing that with that same user group, and then going to investors or building an actual prototype with real customers
So
before raising funds.
who's paying for the initial investment? That would be you.
Yeah. So for the first startup, bootstrapped it and then raised some funding for Stream, raised some funding out of the gate, and same thing for Digs. Just having done this, twice over, and now the third time, um, collected some of those really great investors and some net new ones that wanted to take another ride with me and the team. I think at Digs, out of the 25 people we have here, we've worked with about 90% of them. So we just
Yeah.
pulled the most talent dense people
Mm.
over to this team.
So where when you first started doing this, like where are you going for investors? How are you tapping into that network?
Uh, you know, the first time around, really difficult. You don't have a proven track record. I was pretty fresh out of college. Um, so, I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds of meetings with investors.
Where are
Mm,
you getting their numbers from? Like people within your network?
yeah, so just networking like crazy, events around town, going on LinkedIn and trying to get introductions. Warm introductions, of course, are always the best. But once you do get that first initial meeting, what I learned for the ones that I really liked, that I thought, you know, uh, would be great investors and value adds to us, and we'd be a good investment for them. Even if they said no, I would put them on my friends of
Yeah.
name the company list, keep them updated so they can see how we execute. And then
Mm.
eventually some of those top investors ended up coming around and coming back in.
So you're pitching them on your product or your system or your platform. And then do you have like this meal plan of what type of investment they can offer you? Or are you um is it all like customized per investor where it's like, okay, they're offering you something, you're going back and saying, can we give up this much, this many shares of the company? Is it tailored to each investor, or are you like, here's what we're offering as a way to tap into this and become an investor within this platform?
Yeah, so it kind of happens in rounds. So you've probably heard of, there's a seed round, a Series A, et cetera. So usually investors, when they come into one of those rounds you're raising, they all invest on the same terms, and the lead investor typically sets the terms. And that's just a discussion and negotiation between the startup and the investor around, how much equity are we going to give up? What are the terms? I think fortunately with groups like Y Combinator and others, they've created investment vehicles like safes that are really easy and standard to invest on. And so we, just take the safe, and then we work with the lead investors to set the terms, and then all of the follow-on investors come on those same terms.
So for your first round of this, like what were you structuring this off of, or were you leaning on investors to almost set the plan in motion as far as like how much you're going to need, how far out they need projections for the company, obviously knowing like at what point you think you'll be profitable, at what point you'd be able to possibly go public or sell the company. Like, was your first round through this just fumbling your way through it, or were you going off of some sort of structure?
I will say for the first company that I started, I fumbled through the entire process trying
Yeah.
to figure it out. I had multiple different convertible notes and safes and equity rounds, and it was a bit of a mess. So the second time is a bit better. This time around with Digs, I was actually, excuse me, when I left Front Door, I became a venture scout at Fuse, who's a $250 million fund up in Seattle investing in enterprise software. And so, as a venture scout, I would look for other companies for them to invest in because founders are pretty, fairly well connected. I was at breakfast with Fuse one day, just catching up, and Brendan, one of the partners, said, "What are you working on next?" I was like, I promised my wife I was going to take a year off." He's like, "No, seriously, what are you working on?" So I told him, I was like, "Well, hey, me and my friend and future co-founder. He's a former builder, and we've been working on this idea called Digs." And I told him about it, and he literally at breakfast turned over the receipt, wrote terms on the back of the receipt, and said, "You'll have a term sheet in a couple of hours." Now I'll say that's very rare. That rarely ever happens in this world, but um, it was a pretty cool experience. And then we negotiated the terms a bit, and I think he'll tell you I got a little bit better deal, but then they came in, and some of my former investors also came in as well.
So one thing I was always curious about when people are creating these startups, is what sort of financial stake, like what risk are you putting yourself into with these startups if they go belly up or they don't go public or they're just never profitable?
Yeah, personally, I mean, it depends how much money you personally put in. A lot of early entrepreneurs don't put much in. With Digs, I did put a significant amount in because I was fortunate enough to. So you're taking that risk. You could lose all of that investment. I think that's probably the biggest risk. But then also, if this is something you want to do, as a career, you want to build companies that can thrive. Um, then you want to do everything you can to ensure your investors and your team's investment, because they also get equity, um, has the best chance of succeeding. So I think it's more of like I don't know, personal brand loss
Mm.
when your company fails, and depending how you handle that failure.
So essentially the more proven of a track record you have, the more apt investors will be to possibly hand over money into your company if you're like, hey, we've had 10 startups, 8 were successful, versus hey, we had 10 startups and one was successful. It's like, why are we going to give this person our money when they don't have the track record?
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I also think, you may have one or two that didn't quite fail, or didn't quite succeed. But if you failed with some grace and you maintained relationships and you learned from those, investors are just as likely to invest in you on the third or fourth one. Because statistically speaking, if you're still around banging your head against the wall as a startup founder, you're going to have one that breaks out. I
Yeah.
think attrition is one of the main reasons why founders kind of drop off after the first or second one.
Mm.
It's at we I mean we had I know a little bit about this world. My wife works for a startup, and I always find it so interesting. Obviously, every company is unique. Every startup plan is unique, but it's just interesting to me. Like you worked for a scout for these companies, that there's people with money backing them where they're like, go find companies that we can invest in startups, that it's that lucrative, and they're essentially propagating all of these opportunities for entrepreneurs to have backing behind them. Where I mean, I'm sure that this started in some way, shape, or form a really long time ago, but it seems that like this Silicon Valley type model has really blown up as of recently. But like, 50 years ago, people were not starting businesses this way.
Yeah, it's true, and I think a lot of that is just with, how software has evolved and how the expense of starting a software business has drastically come down with things like Amazon, AWS, and, you know, scalable infrastructure like that, just making it so inexpensive to build a company that's infinitely scalable. Um, that's a big point, but then also startups is really where innovation happens. Large enterprise companies, a lot of times, they get so big they can't move as fast as they need to and innovate, even with their
Yeah.
innovation labs and whatnot. At startups, we have the absolute freedom to do things that people just don't have the risk appetite for. And a
Mm.
lot of us fail. 99% of startups fail. The ones that do succeed, those are the ones that are doing things a little bit different and special.
So
What
why
do you
get in? Sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
well, like, why do you think that 99% of them fail?
Oh, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, you guys have also built a business, at, anywhere from getting your accounting wrong, your back office
Mhm,
wrong. Um, a lot of times you don't have the right founder market fit. You're a founder, but you don't have background in the vertical that you're trying to build
mhm,
a solution for, or you don't have the right complementary co-founder. If you're a
mhm.
product guy, you probably need someone on the sales side, because you're going to build a really great product, but no one's going to know about it. Not being able to get investment, even if you do have a great product, but you can't communicate it. Um, and then there's also a lot of luck involved as well.
What's funny about what everything you just said is nothing that you said was related to the product itself. It was all about people.
Yeah.
And I say that because I am of the mindset that, you know, when when you're committed to a product and you have the right people in place, there's always going to be an end user for it. Whether that end user base is millions of people or one person, there's always someone that you can quote unquote sell to, right? And I'm relating this kind of to our spec where we're building on spec. We have an investment partner, and it's not being done in a sense that this is being built for thousands of people. We're building this one of one product that we are choosing to build it for one person because ultimately at the end of the road for that home is only one person. It doesn't need to translate to 1,000 people. Um, and I have a similar mentality where it's, I've been I didn't speak to 100 investors. So I do want to talk about that, but I talked to well over, probably a dozen. And a lot of it came down to, it wasn't the right person, or they didn't have the right risk tolerance, or they didn't see the vision.
Yep.
And and that for me, I had never raised money. I had never done anything with investments. I had to date, had never borrowed money to build my business. So it was a very different different approach for me. um but when we got to a point where we were, had a partner and had someone that was going to invest in it, you know, what really, stuck out to me was that no, this was completely about people and being able to communicate what the vision is and communicate that, hey, this is the goal. And as long as we don't give up along the way, it can't fail.
Yep.
And, sure, like, is there potential that it doesn't work or doesn't sell for as much, and we end up taking a loss? And of course, that's a potential outcome. But in my opinion, and again, maybe I'm naive, but in my opinion, if we get to that point, it's because I gave up. I gave up on finding that one person or that one clientele or that one group of people that wanted this. And and it sounds like that's similar to why you're saying that 99% of these startups fail is because they're only getting a portion of it right, and a portion of it might be, you know one person out of the 20 people that need to be involved.
Exactly, and just having that superpower of being able to make those micro pivots along the way, because you're never, out of the gate when you're starting from scratch, going to get everything right. So as you learn, just failing quickly and small and often, um, and then making those little minor adjustments along the way. And um, I think that's some of the secret ingredient that a lot of founders or business owners have is they're able to learn quickly and fail quickly and then get comfortable with living in that environment because it's never comfortable. I
Mhm.
mean, as soon as you get comfortable in your business, something else happens or you evolve, your company grows, and then you're uncomfortable again because you've never been to that point in your business. You've never been a leader of 5 people, then 10 people, then 25 people. You've never
Mhm.
had 1 million in revenue, then 10 million. So it's always evolving and you're always going to be uncomfortable.
So,
What was Go ahead, Tom.
it's been what, like a year or so since you guys have somewhat opened the doors to what you were doing, right, with Digs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
February 1st.
which was like Builders Show last year. What is it, the product pitch? What is it that you guys are doing with this software so that listeners know, what this product actually is?
Yeah. So Diggs is at our core, we're an AI collaboration platform specifically for residential home builders that automatically organizes all of the documents and decisions that are made and enhances the collaboration. And then through the collaboration and organization of all those, PDFs and decisions, Diggs can generate a homeowner handoff that is a digital twin within a few clicks, so that the homeowner gets this really nice, confetti moment, wow moment, um, and they get a digital version of their home that then they can interact with for warranty and even beyond. And it becomes this digital and searchable record of their home, which I think a lot of homeowners do desire is to understand their life's largest investment and maintain it and have a better resale value in the future because it is an investment.
So for contractors and remodelers who are listening to this, because I feel like that's even somewhat difficult to understand, right? Like you're trying to do away with the binder style document that's turned over to a customer when they build a house in order to maintain their house moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So where Diggs really fits in well within the build workflow or remodel workflow is in the pre-construction process where you're redlining the floor plan, the changes, then design when you're going through making selections and you're bringing in the different vendors and contractors, and there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, tracked, and then shared with all the stakeholders involved. And then, of course, for the handoff and warranty management, there's really not a dedicated software out there for builders for warranty management that's client and consumer facing. And so that's where Diggs really wants to be maniacally focused is on that consumer experience, which then flows through to a really easy experience for you and your team as a builder.
So this is going to be sold to builders or homeowners? Builders.
Yeah, sold to builders. So builders subscribe on it's a SaaS subscription. So per seat. So your team as a builder will pay. And then all of the collaborators, so contractors, subs, vendors, even the homeowner are all free. And then once you do hand off the home to the homeowner gets that digital home for free as well, perpetually.
Okay. So how does this actually, like, so I can wrap my head around it? Are they like you want to be involved with the pre-construction, pre-design, all of that stuff, and using AI to facilitate this? Like, are you guys working off of CAD drawings, Revit? Like, how are you going from design to creating this entire document or this entire software platform for each and every home?
Yeah, so that's one of the superpowers of AI today is we can using AI or leveraging it, you can create a really easy to use experience. So um, at Diggs, we don't require any CAD or 3D modeling software or outputs. We just work off of simply PDF documents. So how you're sharing all of the information today, the selections typically in PDF, the floor plan PDF, our AI model can actually read the floor plan and understand all the walls, windows, doors, dimensions. We can read all the selection lists, what's going where, what appliances are in the kitchen, what's associated with the master bath, etc. And it looks at all these documents and then organizes them in a really intelligent way. So, for instance, if you interact with your kitchen, you'll see only the information that's associated with that kitchen within Digs. When you leave comments or you're having a conversation, all of those comments understand where they're at on the floor plan. So the floor plan kind of becomes the canvas for all the collaboration.
How
And
does
you guys are creating, like, 3D modeling from this as well? I mean, I would assume that that's part of that?
Yeah, so this is something that's really unique to our custom AI model. Is we can take again just a PDF blueprint or floor plan, and within seconds we can generate a 3D dollhouse view on top of that floor plan.
And
from the PDF?
how
Yeah.
detailed is that?
As detailed as the floor plan is. So what we're doing is we're recognizing all the labels on the floor plan. We're taking the scale and applying that to the floor plan as well, so we get dimensions. And we're taking all the labels of, we can recognize where a toilet, a sink, a countertop, a refrigerator, where all of those are labeled on the floor plan. We can recognize those and do what we call product segmentation, so we understand where all of those products belong spatially on the floor plan.
So, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, it's overwhelming.
Sorry about that.
Like, right, you have drawings, you have PDFs, and then there's shop drawings, which are dictating critical details to the execution of whether it's a cabinet layout, a floor plan, whatever that may be. It's able to take that information too and then translate that into your modeling. So it just it's really pulling all of this stuff together from all of these different resources that are drawn up through all of these different programs. It's just not uniform at all, and it's able to take all of that and then create a model that's very accurate based on that information.
Exactly. That's exactly the direction that we're going. So today, when I say dollhouse view, it's just based on the primary plan,
Yeah.
and we're blowing that up into a dollhouse view. We're recognizing all the labels. Um, where we're going is exactly what you said. We're going to take any of those types of drawings, um, and we're going to bring those in to that dollhouse as well. We're going to look at all the selections, know the make and model of your refrigerator. Is it a French door, single door, etc.? And there's going to be a 3D model that populates the floor plan representing that. And then all of these things we recognize and we populate are going to become places that you can interact with. So you can imagine you need to know the make and model of the refrigerator that was selected. You can tap on it within Digs, and
Mhm.
all of the information of that refrigerator will pop up for you, the warranty information, etc.
Tyler, one of the things I had talked to Ryan about when him and I first connected was, you know, I think about this in the future, and when we're removed from the situation and we hand this off to the homeowner, the ability to open up your phone and walk into a store, and like you're walking around Restoration Hardware and you see a couch that you like, and to be able to open your phone and basically walk around the couch and scan that couch and place it into the quote unquote digital twin and know if it fits into your living room. And I know, like, you're talking like you're right now you're it's very much a rudimentary dollhouse view, but that's where this is going. Is this whole you truly have a complete digital twin of your home, and that's one case, one case scenario. But it's same, it's like, yeah, sure, you're walking around and you're in the store and you need to know the model of your refrigerator. You can pull it up within the model. Or it's like, what kind of light bulb was in that light fixture that we have in the living room. It's like, well, I can pull up the model of my home and see that. And I think that's a super interesting thing, because for us, we have our home care division, and if we have a model of every home that we build, and then my home care tech, or say I hire another home care tech, and he goes to a house for the first time, he's got the whole model on his iPad, and he can walk in and he can go right up to the piece of equipment and know that what that equipment is, what it requires, how it gets serviced, and all that product data. The I think that's the really powerful part of this, and I know you guys are early on it. My One of the questions I've been meaning to ask is, you know, a lot of people listening to this are probably thinking, "Great, another software.
Mhm.
Just what I just what I need.
Yeah.
I don't have time for software." So directly related to like project management software, Buildertrend, for example, you know, how is this different, or how does it potentially integrate, or is this, a replacement for, like, what do you see your relationship between what you guys are doing with AI and these project management tools such as something like Buildertrend?
Yeah, so we see Buildertrend and Procore and others as really great platforms that we'd love to integrate with. They handle, end-to-end construction. They're really
Yep.
kind of, I don't want to say back of the office technology, whereas Digs we see as more of the client experience software that will play really well with Buildertrend and Procore. Um, so I can say with confidence in the future, not distant future, there will be an integration with both of those. It's just a matter of prioritizing and whatnot. But um,
So it's
yeah,
more
so
complementary than
yeah,
replacement. Yeah.
Do you know what?
exactly.
Do you know what's crazy to me to think like anything that you use right now and you try and combine within our industry, like you have to have the same common denominator. Like to be able to bring things in that are through different programs, through different models, and join them together without having to then transfer them to a different language to be able to make it work is the part in my head that's kind of blowing my mind,
Mhm.
because it's like, oh well, this doesn't play with that, and this, and like to be able to bring them all together and not have to create the uniformity beforehand. It seems like you're adding fractions together with different denominators and it's still working out.
Yeah, it is, and I think the prevalence of APIs um, allows that to happen. Is that Builder
What's
Trend?
an API? Am gonna stop you every time you
Yeah, yeah.
drop
So
something.
application program interface. So
Okay.
it's just a way to be able to communicate back and forth.
Mhm.
So for instance, Procore is basically built on APIs. That's why they have a marketplace of all these partners they can plug in to their API and they can share data back and forth.
Mhm.
So very similar with Buildertrend, what they're building, and Digs, we're built on APIs as well. So we're able to pull the relevant information that you as a builder put into, say, Builder Trend. We're able to pull what we need to provide the experience seamlessly within Digs between you and your client. So it really should be little to no lift to use both platforms and
Mhm.
have all the software that you're used to using today, but now this new experience that you can put in front of your clients and be proud about,
Mhm.
uh, all the way through the end-to-end build process.
What about someone that doesn't use any software? Like, I don't use any software, I track everything manually. Why am I gonna implement something like Digs?
Great question. We do have some of those. I think one of our biggest partners and earliest partners didn't use any software. So what we learned very early on is the ones that don't use software, they always typically have some sort of file management. So they use SharePoint or Google Drive or Dropbox,
Mhm.
and they don't really consider that software typically. So our proposition to them, and I'll use Cascade West as an example, is hey, we're a purpose built Dropbox or SharePoint for you, for builders, with this added benefit of collaboration and handoff and warranty management. And priced very similar. So that's kind of our pitch to folks that don't use software is really easy to use, purpose built for you, um, and we're consumer facing. So what that means for you is that we're going to be really easy to get up and going within minutes. You're not going to need training,
Mhm.
or certification or anything like that. And someone like Cascade West has picked us up over the past, couple of months, and they've launched two new neighborhoods, about 84 homes. Digs is on their sign because they're using Digs as a selling point because they're selling their experience now, which they haven't done really in the past. And they
In
built,
in a
yeah.
community with 84 homes, what is Diggs' role in that? Like, what's the selling point for I go in to buy a home and I see the dig sign, it's what benefit does that provide me?
You go from, their onboarding binder and everything being pencil and paper to now everything's on your phone.
So it's
So you
really
go
the handoff that is the value, not the collaboration tool during construction, it's the handoff.
So even the collaboration for design.
Mhm,
So, pre-construction, they're now having their design meetings in real time, redlining the floor plan when there's changes. What the homeowners really love in this particular instance is now they can take their digital version of all of their information. They can meet with all the vendors and contractors for flooring, lighting, etc., and work with them digitally. It's all captured on their layer.
mhm,
So they're not getting, 5 to 7 different floor plans back and trying to track all of their selections and whatnot. It's all captured on their phone.
mm,
And so they're not walking around with this big binder. Um, and, these days we're all conditioned to be on our phones. We're all used to digital experiences everywhere in our life, except when you get into building a new home, typically. That's
mhm,
not, blanket across all builders because a lot of people are, adopting digital experiences. But from a homeowner perspective, it really feels like you're getting splashed in the face with cold water because you go from your phone to now everything's analog. Uh,
mhm.
and they do desire digital experiences. I think there's something like 50 million millennials and Gen Zers coming onto the market over the next 10 years, and they definitely demand a digital experience.
Yeah.
Um,
How intentional was that to create a product or a system that has a heavy emphasis and like a higher value on the end user versus just the contractor? Because I look at a lot of things within our industry, right? And it's like, well, let me try and sell this to this builder or this, like it's all direct to the builder. And then if it offers the builder value, then they can try and turn that over and pass that through to the customer. But it seems like you guys are putting more emphasis on the end user, even more so than the contractor. And is that intentional as far as a selling point where it's like, hey, we really want to pass value through to the end user, and we feel that contractors or builders will adopt that due to those reasons?
Yeah, I mean, we started out with a hypothesis that there really, and a lot of research that there's really nothing out there for builders to really easily communicate and provide a great digital client experience. And then through our research, what we found talking to, I think we had initially talked to like 25 or 30 different builders across the country, and they of course brought up they want, a new scheduling tool. They want all these other things. But at the end of the day, every single one of them said one of their biggest pain points is engaging with the client, collaborating with the client, and that client experience. That was one thread that it was glaring. And so we said, no one's really servicing this piece. Let's not build everything else that's already been built. Let's just focus on this niche
Mm,
that hasn't been solved. And yes, it is, for their client first, but it solves a really core pain point that comes back to what, a lot of builders face every day. And so me being, I went through the home building process, built a custom home a couple years ago. Um, so that experience really drove a lot of this because I want this as a homeowner. And then my co-founder Ty built, as I mentioned, luxury homes in Montana, and so he brings that builder perspective, and he's faced a lot of the challenges from the builder standpoint. And so we really married those two together. But you're right, we did start from the client experience and work our way back.
Yeah, it's a unique perspective and a unique stance that you guys are taking because I feel that most products, not even just software, but products that come out and hit the market today, like, yeah, they're designing them around what's going to pique the interest of clients. But at the end of the day, like they feel as though the selling point is how much time or money it either saves or makes the contractor.
Mhm.
And like you're almost approaching that from the opposite end of the spectrum where we're like, hey, this is a value add for the customer, which is also going to make the contractor's life easier, which isn't typically the path that product or software comes to market through our industry.
I would
Yeah.
add too that I think, you know, Ryan, I've done similar research and feedback with clients that we've built for, and always ask, like what could we improve on, right? And the majority of the feedback was all like it was always centered around communication.
Hmm.
And so that's 2 years ago we took that pretty seriously and said we need to make sure that our number one focus is the way we communicate during a project. And and even a client that would have said, oh well, we were over budget. It's like, well, we weren't over budget, we just didn't clearly communicate when changes were happening, or you're behind schedule. It's like, we weren't behind schedule, we just weren't clearly communicating. And it all centered around that. And I think, Tyler, kind of what you said, but this you know, anything that focuses on the user experience, maybe it's not something that is, hey, this is going to save the builder money or make the builder additional revenue. But to your point in Cascade West, it's like it's a selling point where I've been across the table from a client and they stopped and then they had asked me and they said, I want to understand how you're going to communicate with me throughout this project.
Yep.
And I remember two scenarios. One, I didn't have an answer for it, and I kind of just explained it, loosely defined, and we didn't do the job. And the other one, we had a system, like we knew how we communicated and knew the process and knew roles and responsibilities, and we communicated that, and they hired us based on that. They
Okay.
said, because you're organized and you like, I understand who I'm talking to and how I'm going to be communicated with, and that you're doing daily logs and weekly meetings, and this is organized. Then that's who we want to proceed with, because our previous experience was not that. We didn't know when guys were working, when they were showing up, where we stood with the project, where how are we doing on budget, on time, on schedule. And I think that you're spot on with this millennial and Gen Z generation, is that that's going to just be expected.
Hmm.
It's not going to be something that they're going to have much tolerance for. It's like, I had a conversation with my son last night, and he's running up and down the stairs all night waiting for Amazon to drop a package off.
What's he
And
getting? What's he getting?
he was getting Valentine's for his class.
Oh,
All right.
And he's like, where are they? Why? Like, can you just see where they are in your phone? I'm like, dude, that out for delivery is as much
yeah.
information as I got, right? And then it changed and it said rescheduled delivery for tomorrow. And he was like, I don't understand. Now, meanwhile, he's 5 years old, but that is the reality. Is that's how, like, even myself and my generation, like, we look at our phone, like, when's that package showing up? It used to be just whenever it came to the front door, like, it would show up. Now
Yep.
we're getting text notifications, we're getting an email, we're getting, I get Uber Eats telling me that the driver's on a bicycle 50 yards away, and that's what we've built to work with. And it's going to be the same thing with building. We're going to get to a point where there's a little house that has a loading bar on it that we're going to watch load every day that it's being built.
If you
Yep.
It's like
really
that.
want to torture yourself, have your kids try and listen to the radio. I had Tilly in my work truck and like it doesn't have Bluetooth or anything. And so I can't play my phone, Spotify on the radio. So she's like, I
Mhm.
want to listen to music, put on Taylor Swift. And I was like, I can't put on Taylor Swift. She's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I don't have my phone set up. I don't have an auxiliary cord to plug in, Bluetooth, nothing. And so she just pressing like the scan button over and over until she hears a song that she likes. And then it's over and then just starts again. I was like, you got to stop. Like, we can't do, they just don't understand that that's not the
Same.
way it
No,
is.
we were
100%.
somewhere with TV, and it didn't, like, it was just cable.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just like, she's like, I want to watch, whatever. And I'm like, you actually only can watch what's on the
Yeah.
TV. You can't even fast forward it. You can't skip commercials. It's like, you just have to watch it.
Could you imagine?
But
Yeah. My.
but I think, Ryan, I think you're right. I think this is, we're going to be dealing with a generation. You said 50 million people coming into the market. That's a lot of people that are going to have much higher expectations, because everything else around us has groomed us for those expectations,
Do you
except for building.
do you know what I'd be curious to know about also, that I mean, I'm sure that most people are aware the bulk of the residential construction industry is made up of really small owner operator type
Mhm.
businesses. There's, you know, I don't know the percentage. It's something silly like 90% or something is small one, two man, three man operations. And most of the software and everything else that's out there these days is marketed towards these bigger companies who have the overhead, who need the management software and everything else. And it's new builds. I think it gets a little more convoluted when you have smaller remodel projects where it's like, hey, are our subs going to adopt this? Are our team, our customers, do you foresee your software having like really bridging into that remodel market where it's usable for these small teams?
Absolutely. So are you asking for like the small remodel or like custom build or
Just I think that like the big market within residential
Hmm,
construction that like is hard to tap into because there's no standardization is these small operations,
yeah,
the small 1-2 man teams. And that's the bulk of our industry where
yeah.
like, you know, the top 5% gets all the attention, but realistic it's like This Old House being on PBS. Nobody hears about it, but it's like the number one television show in the entire country because you have East Coast and West Coast, and then the entire center of the country is watching PBS. Um, and I think that if somebody is able to tap into that market for these small owner operator type companies and create a platform or a system that they can adopt and easily put into place without costing them an arm and a leg, like for me that's the ticket, that's the golden egg. And I'd be curious if you guys foresee that happening or have any plans of being able to tap into that market.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where we started. Um, and we still live is I mean, it's a really fragmented space, as you know, because no one's using, the same software platform or they're not using any software. Um, a lot of times some of these smaller builders are a bit technology adverse. And so um, it is an area that if you can get traction, which we're starting to see some on our side, it could be so powerful because, like you said, they build such a large percentage of every home built in the U.S. And what I think one of the things that I was fascinated to learn is we just brought on our first national builder. They build tens of thousands of homes a year. It's an early engagement, um, but again, 95%, 98% of our current customer base is all small builders, custom builders. Um, and what I was fascinated by was both share very similar problems. That yes, they're different, um, and the large builders a bit oversized, but a lot of the core communication and collaboration pain points are shared between both. So what that means to me is that it's really hard to build like an SMB business and an enterprise business. But when the pain points are so shared, I think that gives Diggs a really unique opportunity to work with all of these small builders, solve their pain points while still addressing some of the builders' pain points as well, because our focus is so niche on the client experience.
I mean, right, Nick, if you're thinking about a house build or say you're putting
Mhm.
on an addition, like a two-story addition to get an additional bathroom or two bathrooms and some bedrooms, you just need more space. You want to blow out and expand your kitchen, right? This is going to be these smaller type jobs that the bulk of our industry across the nation consists of, and it's not new home builds. But most of the decision making and the specs and the detail and all the decisions that need to be made are in that kitchen and in those bathrooms, right? You're adding bedrooms to a house. It's like, yeah, we need some walls, we need a spatial layout, but there's not a ton of finishes going into that space. And if we were to be able to create a program or a software that speaks to these type of projects, because the difference between building an entire house and renovating a smaller project, it's a bigger space, but like a lot of those elements are the same. And that's why I think people have so much trouble making money on bathrooms because it's like you need all the same amount of trades to do a
Mhm,
bathroom as you do an entire house, but it's a really confined space, and you have like the timeline's condensed, and it's really difficult when you have all of those people. Like, you're going to cap out at what you can charge. And I don't think that what the builders do and what these smaller contractors do is that much different. It's just like the decisions, yeah, there's more, but it's more of a quantity more, not necessarily a detail, a level of detail more. And I think that creating something that could serve these people, obviously it speaks to me because I'm a smaller contractor, but it's also like for the customer's sake where right, you want to redo your kitchen and you can't afford a 3D rendering because that's only reserved for the people who have the budget for the entire house.
mhm.
And I think that that would really serve the majority of people because the majority of people aren't building an entire house. The majority of people, are buying something and renovating one project at a time as they can afford it.
But I do think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, I think that the software is gonna be at a point where scanning a room is not gonna be a heavy lift nor a heavy cost. There's other software that I'm aware of that, is using it exactly for that, Tyler, just like specifically a kitchen. And they're getting most of that point cloud data. Am I using the right term?
Yeah,
I think it's, yeah, point
nice.
cloud data right off their phone,
Yeah.
because the iPhone or an iPad, like it does this. And I think that's a lot of people don't know that. And I found out 2 weeks ago that I can open my a measuring tape on my phone, and I can measure it by just moving my phone across a surface. And I was like, "There's no way it's accurate." Sure enough, I pull up my tape measure, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's spot on." So I think that's going to be a light lift. So you go in to do a bathroom, Tyler. You pull out your phone, you go in, you scan the whole room, and you're going to basically have that model of that bathroom. So instead of going in and you know measuring and then going home and then like figuring out how much tile you need and how much square footage of paint, it's like you have the model, and then whether or not that gets transferred to the client, I think, is the bigger question when it comes to these very confined room by room renovations. But I think that I think that's where you have opportunity to create value add to the client, where it's like, hey, we're gonna model your home, so we have this data for ourself, and we can also extend that to you, and we can get the rest of the home modeled if whatever value add that might add.
I mean, think how much more profitable you could be as a smaller contractor if you were able to get all of that information and relay it to the customer and have it in an organized manner without having to hire multiple people to do that for you.
Dude,
Yep.
roofers have been doing this
I know.
forever.
Yeah.
They like I talked to a guy, and he wouldn't even go to homes.
No,
He
they
would
just pay and they send them a
be
report.
like, it's just like, "Hey, drove by your house, noticed you needed a new roof, 18 grand, we'll have it done next week." And you do that at scale, you just build a pipeline of work. It's like, I wasn't even thinking about my roof, but let me go out and look at it. It's like, holy crap, it's in terrible shape. 18 grand sounds like a deal. He'll be here next week.
I think this is such a fascinating point. And one of the powers of, I keep coming back to AI because I'm so excited about it. But like you said, most people can't afford, especially on remodel projects, to have a 3D rendering created. That's
Mhm,
thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, even for a new build. It's like I got quoted for my home like 25 or 50,000. Digs can now do a 3D rendering within seconds included in the price of the software. So AI is commoditizing some of these really manual tasks.
mhm,
Um, and even like you said, Nick, the new LiDAR, the new sensor on the iPhones, now you can get pretty damn accurate, scans and measurements of the home,
mhm,
um, and create 3D renderings of them that you can pull into a software like Digs. And so there's all these access points to pull in information and have an AI organize it for you, so you can eliminate a lot of the back and forth or multiple people on the job site capturing information and do it. Have AI take out some of the monotony of those tasks.
Why are we hiring surveyors anymore? You know? I was thinking about, like, what are architects gonna think about this AI? But then I'm like, at the same time, yeah, you could use this to design, but there's a lot of homes that they're looking for specific design that I think obviously you're still going to be needing architects and designers, and then bringing this in and creating the modeling and this the value for the customer with that interface. But it's like, I hired people to survey my property, and they came out and they had like their surveyors and they marked stuff with like stakes, and I'm like, I feel like there would be a much easier way of doing that today.
Well, there is, and big site contractors will use it. I forget what it's called, but they basically scan from above and pull out the topography. But I think it's just I think at least at the time, it was just very expensive, so it didn't make sense to do it for a small property. And I think what as Ryan's saying, as this stuff becomes commoditized and things like AI make it more obtainable and faster and less expensive, it will be it will be something that you can just go online and say, hey, here's my property, my address. I want a survey done, and it's like, here you go. Here's the topo based on lidar from the sky. I don't really even know.
Satellite imagery. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that. That has to be. I mean, it's being done. I think it's just being done at a massive scale where it's just not you know cost effective for maybe a smaller project right now. And
So,
maybe it is. And it's just the technologies. It just hasn't been
Ryan,
adopted.
assuming that you guys are looking to get to that point, like, what do you have any idea what that relationship or what that package would look like for smaller contractors? Like, how would they adopt and start using this? And from like a cost standpoint, what is that going to look like for a small contractor versus a larger builder? Or is it too early to be able to tell that?
Yeah, so for, I mean, a smaller contractor, that's who we're accommodating today. So they would pay, you know, we're $59 right now per user, and that's just for your team. Again, it's not for all the collaborators that you can invite. Um, and so any contractor or builder can get on there today and use our product. For enterprise, I mean, they typically require some custom integration to their backend systems, or they need like single sign-on or things like that. So they have a higher price that accommodates all the extra hand holding and partnership. Um, but yeah, we've really built digs to work off the shelf. So we have remodelers and smaller contractors on the platform today. And I think one of the things that surprised me was how quickly we got to vendors and like flooring contractors and whatnot. They've started to adopt digs because they've been brought in as a collaborator, a free collaborator with the builder, saw the value, and now are using digs for things like takeoffs, faster takeoffs, because we give them the dimensions automatically. We give them a layer that they can come in and design where all the flooring's going and do a faster takeoff. So we're starting to see more adoption from vendors and contractors as well.
That's interesting. I didn't think of it from that standpoint. You're basically able to do takeoff for people without ever I mean, I know that you said that, but without really stepping into their, like, for those type of contractors that are just looking for square foot pricing, um that's like really saving a lot of time.
Dude, I think the play, like, there's a company, I'm not going to mention the name on the podcast for certain reasons, but there's a company that started taking this idea on the pricing side of it, where they were building this model to understand every single project that they've ever priced to be able to speed up, and turn around an accurate estimate where they were collecting enough information to be able to turn around and say, "Hey, that project's going to cost $647,000." And it was super interesting when I was digging into it because I think about our pre-construction process and pricing process, and I totally understand whoever's yelling at the radio right now saying, "Well, everything's custom, everything's different." Like, totally fair, but when you break it down enough, there's a lot of repeatability in those line items. When you summarize it, yes, it's very hard to pinpoint. But when you break it down into enough items, it really can be, a formula that is going to be able to spit out accurate information. Where it's like, and at every level, I'm thinking tile for whatever reason, but it's
Yeah.
like you think about tile material, it's like, well, you can plug in a certain allowance for material, but you know that, okay, well, how much of it is a shower and how much of it is a floor? It's like, well, a shower, what kind of waterproofing system are we using? Well, based on that information, we know that that waterproofing system requires X amount of dollars per square foot. And you, like I said, you break it down far enough where that I think, is separate from what we're talking about with digs, but that side of it, and I know that there's a lot of people focused on the pre-construction side of it, and unfortunately, I just haven't seen a big win out of that from the software side. But if you can figure out a way to fast track pricing, think about how many. I know for me that I've lost a lot of opportunities and a lot of projects because of the speed in which we turned around pricing.
Yep.
And the reality is, if you go buy a car, you're going to buy a car and you're like, I love this truck. I want this truck. All right, let me put together a price for you and I'll get back to you in a couple weeks. And I leave the dealership. I'm not in love with that truck anymore.
Hmm.
It's just like,
Yeah.
and then they call me like, hey, it's $62,000. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm good with my old truck. Like I've had, you know, more time to think about it. I'm just not in love with it anymore. And
Yeah.
I think that speed is, this is again where AI comes into play. I think that the speed of being able to get information back to the consumer is just going to be a demand that we see continuing to increase with, the future generations, but something that we need to perfect, and we need to get to a point where, you know let me back up. There's so much argument to AI and innovation in terms of like trades and replacing the plumber and replacing the carpenter. It's like, well, here, let's replace everything else. Let's simplify the pricing structure. Let's simplify the accounting structure. Let's simplify the warranty structure and the handoff structure and all of that, and let the craft be the craft.
Yep.
Because truthfully, like, the craft is so expensive right now because of everything that requires to get to that point, where if you can simplify and shorten the time it takes to get to actually doing the work, you're saving time, which is saving money, which is making the cost of that craft less expensive to the consumer. Now, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we're reducing the pay to the craftsperson or the tradesperson. It's just that the time it took to get there is less expensive.
Exactly. And that's where the state of AI today is really good at. It's taking out some of those manual tasks. We're not anywhere close to artificial general intelligence, where artificial intelligence is as smart as a human and
Hmm.
able to replace humans. We're not close to that yet. And it's probably going to be years and years before we get there. But this is where AI can be really impactful, is finding patterns, reducing pain points in, like you're saying, like estimates and spending. And
Hmm.
that takes away, you shouldn't be spending time on that. You should be spending time on building relationships and focusing on the craftsmanship. And um, that's where AI is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to the tile side of it, it's like you build this. I don't know why I'm fixated on tile, but you build this model where it's like you basically provided information, how big the shower is, how big the bathroom is, and then it's pulling product data,
Hmm.
and it's updating that product data automatically because it knows what the vendor's selling this for. So it's saying, hey, based on that shower, you actually need, 3.5 sheets of tile backer board, but you can't buy a half sheet, so we know it's four. So you're getting four, and then you're getting this much material, and we know that takes, like, it's taking all that information and plugging in, again, letting the craftsperson do the actual work, and then we're not using that AI to replace quality or the craftsmanship. The the other interesting thing I've seen is specific to AI is and the general population also is not building an overly elaborate home, a custom home. Most of these homes are relatively simple in nature. You know, like the percentage that's building these like architecturally distinct homes is very small. So let's just table that for a moment.
Mhm.
But I've seen these AI models where I forget the company's name. Ryan, you might know it, but you essentially plugged into a portal. It looked like you were in SketchUp. And then
Mhm.
you were selecting things and it was basically this home that you could move around, pick, drag, and you could pick like, "Oh, actually, you know what? I want a farmer's porch." You click on the farmer's porch, it's like it puts one on the house. It's like, "Well, I want it bigger than that." And then you can drag it and you're essentially manipulating this like cartoon house and it's giving you all these options. It's like, you know what, the primary bedroom's a little small. Make it another foot bigger. All right, so you drag it bigger. And when you were like, "Hey, I love this house," you hit done, and it would spit out a construction set of drawings,
Yep.
all the structural information, all the beam spans, all the wall details, everything. And I was like, that. If you think about it, like it's doing the same thing a human's doing as an architect, where it's like, all right, we know what it is. Now we need to understand what each wall is doing. All it's doing is taking that data that you've decided in terms of design and then giving you the standard details for it. So for the majority of the population that wants to build a quote unquote custom home,
Yeah.
it's speeding up that process to literally, an hour.
Yeah.
Have you guys gauged the end user experience? I mean, I'm sure that you have, but as it's been a year into really implementing these things to see what the feedback is from the customer end of things?
From the end user or
Yeah, from like I mean, essentially all of this is driven by creating a better end user experience
Mhm.
for the customer,
Yeah.
and what that experience has actually been like in the real world.
Yeah, so we're really excited about coming out with a handful of case studies this year. That's been kind of top of mind for us, just to highlight some of these successes, both on the builder side for each build phase, the pre-construction design and handoff and warranty, but then also on the homeowner side. And I think one of the things that we got really excited about when we a year ago first told the world what we're doing is about half of our user base is homeowners. And so that kind of surprised us because all of our messaging was really geared towards builders and contractors uh, and so having this influx of homeowners, we were really curious. And so what's the first thing we do is we're a research driven organization. And so we reached out to as many as these homeowners that would talk to us. And what we found out is that many of these homeowners are either about to build a home and they're looking for software that they can bring to the builder to say, hey, I want to use this because I want a digital experience. They're doing a remodel and they want to work with their contractor. Um, or, they already have a home and they just want a place to store all of their home information. And it's better than, a file storage system that's out there today because this is built for the home. So we have like 30 or 40 different customer testimonials from homeowners around these three use cases. And again, this is thousands of homeowners that have just organically found our platform and are using us. And it was a little perplexing at first, but I think it just highlighted to us that there is this really high consumer demand around a digital building experience, around just simply organizing their home and understanding it for better maintenance and resale value. And so that's been an area where we actually accelerated in our product roadmap, the homeowner portal and homeowner experience and handoff. And we got that out, I think, Q3 or Q4 last year because of all this pent up demand that we were starting to see from homeowners. And if they want to bring in their builders into digs, that's a great organic lead gen for us as well.
Where currently, when you say that these are like organic customers, where and how are they hearing about you guys?
Us from Google searches. We've been on Mike Rowe's podcast a handful of times, sponsoring that. Um, yeah, a lot of social word of mouth. Um, attribution towards, where our leads are coming from is something we're still working on, like many businesses struggle with, large and small. But yeah, it's a lot of word of mouth and social.
Nick, I guess the one thing that I'm trying to see is like if a customer came to you with like, "Hey, I have all of this information from this platform," and you didn't know about that, like, would that be a bit of a hang up for you? Or looking at it from like an old school traditional builder, are they going to be like, "What the hell is this?" Like, "No, this doesn't fit my program. I'm going to kick this to the curb." Or do you feel that you would be willing to look into something like this?
I'm gonna answer that two ways. So we're already in conversations with Diggs to build the digital twin of our projects specific to our client handover, because that is what ultimately, from a home care perspective, that is the most important thing for us is to have centralized location. So we're already in conversation. The other side of what you asked, if a client had say this model and came to me and said, hey, I want to do a renovation of my home, I have all this information. Interestingly, during COVID, we were looking at a big renovation, and they were in the process of purchasing the home, and we wanted to schedule a walkthrough to walk through what they wanted and understand the home so we could put together an estimate. And for many reasons, we couldn't get into the home. One of them being because of COVID. And they said, but we have an entire model, digital twin of the house, which they were using Matterport at the time. So
Cool.
they sent us the entire Matterport file. It was scaled, it was accurate, and we put together a complete estimate for the renovation of that home based on that. And at the time, it was like, I'm never going to get the full picture here. And so I remember driving up to the property. I couldn't go in, but I drove by it. And as I'm driving by it, I'm like, there's no, I already know this.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, I'm not getting any more information by looking at it in person. And at that moment, that's where I was like, this is a really interesting way to be able to go into a project and have more information. And not only that, like I said before, I can go back and open that model again and say
I feel
maybe
like
I've
it'd be
done
great for realtors.
Yeah.
well. I mean, they
Yep.
they use it. I think you're seeing that a lot in these 3D tours and things like
Mhm.
that.
I mean, even like to be able to sell a home that has like this organization with it as far as like, hey, right? Like, I don't know. I just had to go replace a dehumidifier in a basement that I did 4 years ago. And I'm like reading through the instruction manual to be able to tell the customer how often they need to clean this and do that. And I'm like, I look for that when I'm buying a $250 dehumidifier, but then people are buying homes and not looking for any sort of care or maintenance
Mhm.
program for that
Where's
home.
my air handler? How
Yeah,
do I
you just
service it?
spent
Where's
$2
the
million
filter?
dollars on a home and you have no fucking clue how to take care of it.
Mhm.
But
Exactly.
like I'm looking for it with a $250 dehumidifier. That's
Yeah.
somewhat crazy. It's just the standard, right? It's what people expect and what people do, and that has never been a standard for people. Um, and it definitely would be convenient and helpful for homeowners or contractors who are looking to work on those homes. So, what do you guys have planned for IBS this year?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know when this comes out, so I've already spilled some of the beans with you guys, so you heard it first. But we're going to be giving private demos of some of our new AI features, Ask Digs, and the 3D Dollhouse. It's going to be behind a feature flag, and we're going to turn it on for some of our early partners. So we'll be demoing that. We have a booth at IBS as well, and then we're hosting a cocktail on Wednesday the 28th at 7 p.m. And we have a special guest coming.
Mm.
Can't quite share who yet, but I think Nick's
Usher.
going to
It's
be.
going to be Usher.
Dang! Don't spoil it.
Don't
He's
forget you guys have
already out there for the Super Bowl. He's just
Yeah,
staying a couple extra weeks.
that's right.
Ryan, you're burying the lead here. You're also nominated for Best of IBS.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so best business software at IBS.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we'll be out there, Nick. We're gonna have to go check this out.
Yeah, they're gonna be. I just looked it up for you, Ryan. You're at booth W4574.
Thank you. Danette's gonna be
You're
happy you
welcome.
brought that up.
So
No,
yeah, if you get
this is all obviously appreciate the conversation and enlightening me on what's going on with the product. Sometimes I see companies and businesses and then I hop on their website and I'm like, I don't quite even understand what this is. So it's cool. Obviously, I did some digging beforehand, but it's cool to get a better idea of actually how this is all working and coming together. I think that the biggest hang up for most people is like, how do I adopt this and not have to spend so much time trying to implement this into my business? And the fear of not understanding how this works and what it does. And I think just being able to dumb this down for conversation's sake so that people understand what it's going to be used for, is super cool. And I'm excited to check it out as things progress.
Awesome. Well, it's been a blast walking through this with you guys, and yeah, really appreciate you guys having us on.
well, where can Tyler learn more about this?
www.digs.com, digs.com.
I don't think you even have to say the www anymore.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
looking at it. I'm
Old
looking
school,
at it
man.
right now. It's just digs.com.
Yeah.
Digs.com.
That's sweet.
Ryan, I appreciate you being on today, man. And we've talked offline, but I appreciate what you're doing for the industry, and I think that you have an impressive background and bringing it to this industry in a way that isn't overly cumbersome and more welcoming to the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish, and and really set up for the next generation. Is certainly going to pay dividends.
Well, thank you. Definitely, these things take a village, and we just want to be a part of the village. So appreciate you guys accepting us.
Cool. Well, yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for Usher too.
Yeah,
Looking
no
forward to
problem,
it.
man.
We will see you in Las Vegas, and if and those that are listening, make sure you check out Diggs's booth at booth number W4574 at the International Builder Show.
See you guys
Sweet,
there.
man. See
Sweet
you
man.
there.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I think that, like I said it before, it's like I think the whole digital twin thing is super interesting. And when he first ran through it, that's all I thought about was when we bought a couch and we brought it home, and I'm like, holy shit, this thing's too big.
Yeah.
And it's like to be able to scan and see stuff in real time. It's like I'm sure there's plenty of people like, this is gimmicky. Why do I need a digital twin of my home? Like I don't need my house to be more complicated than it is. Bullshit. Because life's more complicated. You're constantly wanting more information. You're at the store asking, "Hey, can you measure the window in my daughter's room because I need to order shades for it?" It's like you don't need to do that. It's all that information exists.
I mean, like, so for example, I had a customer send me plans for a small kitchen addition. It's on an old house with like roof tie ins, and it's just like it's small from a square footage perspective, but we're tying into an existing space. And I'm I'm looking at the architectural plans and they're not super comprehensive and like I don't know their house that well, so I'm going online and trying to find photos from
Mhm.
when the house was listed, interior and exterior, to gauge what the space looks like without getting in my truck and bothering the customers and walking the job and everything else. And I'm like, if you were going to put a job out as a customer or to hire an architect, this would almost be the first thing that I do to be like, hey, here's what our house looks like.
Mhm.
Um, to be able to put that out there is like that would be so convenient for me today, and to be able to better understand, like, I don't know, I feel like it's even more important with remodel or renovations or tie-ins like this, where it's like, well, you have a roof line here and a soffit height that you're trying to meet, and then the house bumps out with this bay area over here. I want to see what the interior framing looks like if we're removing that wall. it just would be so much easier than looking at a two-dimensional plan and then trying to reference photos online of what that
Mhm.
looks like.
Yeah. And being able to hold that as, like, an asset.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't have it's not public knowledge, but here's the twin of my home. Again, going back to that whole speed of being able to produce, an estimate for a project is huge, and I think would increase, a builder's pipeline by reducing the amount of work it takes to get to that point.
Yeah, I also am a fan of, like I said, I think that, and I understand why. A lot of the softwares are targeted towards bigger companies. Like
Mhm,
it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to, like, you're trying to hit a market and you have a limited amount of resources, and it's like, hey, how can we blanket as much as we can while still being as specific as we can be, and to offer something to be able to hit a large portion of the market that typically doesn't have the amount of help,
mhm.
I think is really important, because I do believe that there's a lot of contractors out there that could use something like that, but it doesn't, like, it's not out there right now for them. And that's most of us. And I think that that's always been a challenge, and there's no standardization there, but to be able to have something that would be able to create that common denominator for everyone would be really cool.
Yeah. Separate subject, but did you think about when he was talking about early in the podcast, he was talking about, being a runner and getting to the next lap and then having the ghost of him.
Yeah.
All I thought about was Mario Kart.
Yeah. It's
I
true.
was I was I was like, "Yeah, that would be really, really cool." Like, you're just like, seeing your hologram or holograph, whatever it's called, just
Yeah.
running in front of you.
It's cool even when you see people do that with, like, people who are racing, and
Mhm.
they'll, like, overlay them to see where they're making up time,
Yeah.
on that racetrack, where it's like, "Okay, well,
But it's
he's
but it's done
opening up
after the
this."
fact. It's on, like, a TV. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
it's not live.
Absolutely, but I
Yeah.
still, like, it's the same type of thing where it's like you can physically see where you're making up time, where it's like, okay, I'm opening up this corner rather than cutting it tight and closing it off. So although it seems like I'm going slower, it's smoother and I'm making more progress on this. Yeah, that's
Dude,
super cool.
that would make you so much more competitive.
I
If
know,
you
that's why I wouldn't actually like it.
Yeah, you would be like, imagine you on your dirt bike and like, you're in front of yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
I gotta
Well,
beat
I
that
was
dude.
thinking about that with running. I'm like, so if I run, I'm typically like creating these scenarios in my head
Right.
or just going off of times. And I'm like, if there was a shadow of me running next to me, I think I would probably like drop dead, because it would just like perpetually be getting faster. And I don't know if I'd have like
Enough
it
in the tank.
within me to be like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm just going to let it win today.
Yeah.
I think, like, for my personality,
Cranking
it
out 5-minute miles.
yeah, it would be tough.
Yeah.
I think I'd just be good with making believe in my head.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, as always, we appreciate you listening. We will see you next week. Head over to moderncraftsman.co, get some swag. Got those beanies for the cold weather. It's not going to be super chilly in Vegas at the Builders Show, but I bet you'd look pretty cool walking around Vegas in a Modern Craftsman beanie. And definitely grab a notebook and some pencils to make sure you're taking some notes in the classroom sessions. Tyler and I are going to be talking at the Builders Show. So make sure you check that out. We got the info on that in the show notes. And Tyler, we got 50 tickets we're giving away, right?
Yeah, so NAHB partnered with us to give away 50 free registrations, free expo passes to the Builders Show out in Vegas in a
how,
couple of weeks. So
how do they get that?
it'll be in the show notes, and I checked the link because Doug was concerned that it wasn't going to be up and running, but it
Ooh,
is buildershow.com/modern craftsman.
nice.
And it's first come, first serve, 50 free expo passes. So hop on there. If you miss it, don't come crying to me. You had your chance. First come, first serve.
We'll
Once
see you
they're
guys there.
gone, they're gone. Editable, editable, editable.
That's a tough word.